You're listening to Two Mics and a Guest, a podcast of people's stories and the career pathway that led them to where they are. And now your hosts, Michael Holliday and Mike Young. Welcome, everybody, to episode 10. Mike, episode 10 of Two Mics and a Guest. Mike, how do we feel about that?
Halfway to 20, man.
I know.
We're good. It's all good.
We've made it. We've made it to 10. We're in the double digits now. This is good. Mike, we've got a really cool guest today. I'm going to introduce him because we go back a good little ways. I graduated with this gentleman from Tullahoma High School in 2006, Mr. Chris Bond.
I'm glad to be here.
Thanks for joining us.
Glad to make it top 10, too.
I know, you are.
Right. Absolutely.
We got you on the special episode. This is number 10.
The first double digit.
Chris, you are a network and systems administrator for the Tullahoma City School system in the technology department, correct?
Correct.
Sweet. So what does that mean? Like, that's kind of a lot of words, network and systems administrator. It sounds very serious and everything, but what exactly does that mean for some of our listeners?
So network is really the things that, your switches and your routers that we have in these locked up closets.
Big, giant computer-looking things?
Yeah, with a bunch of wires and lights hanging out with them, making sure that they're running up to date when they go down, fix them. The systems is where Apple School Manager has to be updated and a bunch of your software programs. And so one thing I learned about being in public school system, though, is the budget's not unlimited like that. And so do a lot with a bunch, from fixing a printer to, hey, they don't have internet and the switch may have gone down. So from full spectrum there, a lot of different, if it's tech related, I'll probably have my hands in it. Sure.
What's amazing how much we're dependent on. Nobody thinks about network and systems until they don't work, right?
Right.
And so, and it impacts just about everything we're doing in the school system these days. Now, everything's done online and all that.
I often get, have you been? I hadn't seen you in a while. So, well, that's a good thing.
That's a good thing. Yeah, exactly.
You don't want to see me. The thumbs are broken.
Chris might be one of the few people I know that might could explain how the cloud works. We've all wondered what the cloud means, but you don't have to get into that. But he's the guy that you need to call if your internet's not right or the software is going haywire. We have a ticket system. We've talked about that with a previous guest that we've had on the show. We talked about the ticket system. So if a teacher or a TCS employee has an issue with something, they can turn in a ticket, and someone from that technology department, depending on who it relates to, is going to answer that ticket and contact them and help them work through or troubleshoot what the issue might be. So I would assume your days consisted of a lot of ticket answering and decoding what might be an issue for a teacher. Is that correct?
Well, that's funny you say that, because I think a lot of people, they see tech department and they see the ticket system. Like, I put in a ticket, that's what the tech department does. The system and network is almost the things that you don't see, if that makes sense. We got our techs that do all the tickets. Not that I don't do tickets, but a lot of the things, there's a lot that has to be done to keep.
Sure. You're trying to keep a ticket from being sent, right?
Right, yeah. Got to keep the train running. Yeah. Things updated that have to be done that y'all don't see is kind of where I've ventured my career into.
I know we are very blessed to use the Apple ecosystem, and every time we get a new computer or a new tech device, Chris is that guy that's like, you guys and your Apple products again. Let me get this up and running and get softwares loaded to it. And you love the Apple ecosystem.
Yeah. Well, the funny story how I became Apple guy. So when I had my job interview here, at the end of it, she goes, well, do you have any concerns? And I was like, well, one, we outsourced the printers at my old job, and we didn't have Apple products. And she's like, oh, we don't have to deal with Apple products. 2 months into my job, she was like, well, I'm going to get you to take over the Apple labs. And I'm like, oh
boy.
So I've just kind of
trial by fire.
Yeah, since I've been here. So
you've done a good job for us. We're all in over there on our Apple.
Mike, don't tell them we got 2 more on order that are coming.
I've recently started putting in POs in our inventory systems. I saw that come by yesterday.
Sweet.
No, it's interesting. The systems, we assume those, right? It's funny now when my internet goes down, everything goes down. And we're talking about more than just Wi-Fi and stuff when we're talking about the systems for the school system. But we assume it, and we're able to assume it because you guys are doing your job, really. I mean, that's part of the way that's set up, it seems like.
Right, yeah.
So was tech something you always wanted to be into?
Tech is something I never thought I would be into.
Ah, that's interesting.
I was about to say, did we have a young interest in computers when you were younger? And then no,
never had an interest in computers until later on.
What did we want to be in high school? Did we know? Were we one of those that were like, oh, I'm going to be this, but then it changed?
Well, I always said I was going to be the UPS man. But
okay.
Had a cool truck.
Yeah.
Got the doors
That's a good gig.
Yeah. No, but so growing up, I think, I don't have a story to tell because I had such good childhood. I think it's apparent now, like that should be your goal is not to give your kid a story.
Yeah.
But what I did is we played sports.
Yep.
1990s, early 2000s. If you're a guy in Tullahoma, you're playing sports, right? And so
big baseball era.
Yeah, like a Babe Ruth league in the early 2000s. It was huge here.
Yeah. Big boom, yeah.
And it was competitive.
A lot of all-star teams.
A lot of good teams and a lot of good players. And so growing up, I was so consumed with athletics, and I thought I was pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
For an example, 8th grade year, I all-star Babe Ruth, all-district Tullahoma Middle School football, all-district West Middle School basketball, and I set a track record for West Middle School. Like,
oh wow!
Like I was like, I'm an athlete. That's what I am.
Yeah.
Growing up,
right?
Yeah.
And so,
well, I can vouch for that because both you and your younger brother, were just phenomenal athletes for the Tullahoma school system.
Well, and you checked off all the royalty for middle school boys, for boys all through high school. Really,
Right.
I mean, I can do this, right?
right. And so, get to freshman. It's kind of the same thing because you're putting kids your same age. You're not stuck with the seniors, and then I get to my sophomore year, and basketball season rolls around, and I don't play. Well, I guess football season was first.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you play on that?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Well,
I tried out for freshman basketball, but didn't make it.
Okay. So my sophomore year, I think that was Coach Olive's first losing season as a coach, 3-7. And I'm a starting corner. And not because I'm great. It's because we're that bad and they got nobody else.
You were the option.
Run. Yeah.
Right.
And I just remember getting demolished all the time.
That's when we were playing huge schools.
Yeah, the Hillsboroughs.
The Riverdales, the Hillsborough, yeah.
And there was no targeting back in the day.
No.
There was no blindside block.
Concussions were less considerate, yeah.
And so I hated it. Just turned me off football. And then I go play basketball. I'm like, I don't get to play, and we're full of juniors because I'm a sophomore. And I was 5'8" in 8th grade. I am 5'8" today. People started growing.
That was a good thing in 8th grade.
Yeah. Played baseball and sat the bench. Next year I was like, well, I'm not playing basketball again. So go play football again. We ended up set at 3-7, 4-6. I was like, this is just not fun.
Slightly better.
And I remember I started, instead of starting, I had a rotation. So everybody my age just started to catch up to me, and I'm like, well, I'm not this athlete that I thought I was. And so, it was adversity, and I didn't know how to handle that. I just shut kind of down. But I did play baseball, and that was the year we had Brian Morris, Ben Darlington, Ben Walker. I mean, just
Shelton, yeah.
Shelton.
They were good.
Brady Goodwin, just loaded.
Haywood, right? There was
Haywood was behind the plate.
Yeah.
I mean,
stacked.
just stacked. We go to state. Had a blast.
I remember going to that in Memphis.
Yeah. Didn't turn out well.
No, it didn't. But dang you, Fair getting. Who else was Fair getting? It was. Do you remember the other team?
Farragut put us out. We played Houston.
They were.
And Houston was the team that.
That's who it was.
Brian Morris, who was first round MLB pick.
Everyone was looking at him. Yeah.
Yeah, just hitting bombs off the wall.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Anyways, side note, but yeah,
That's not a side note.
Baseball was good that year. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think it's important to bring that up because I know there's a lot of students that kind of go through that realization. One, I mean, big fish in a little pond at one point in middle school.
Right.
And then you're having to adjust. And you talked about adversity and not being able to deal with it at that point. I mean,
and it seems silly to say now, but as a 16-year-old boy growing up in Tullahoma at that time, like that was
your identity.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, anyways, I was like, you know what? I'm not playing football anymore, and I hated that. To this day, I regret that. I think
Really?
would y'all go like 9-3 or?
Yeah, it was. You didn't play senior year?
No.
Okay, yeah.
Did you?
I think we're better. No, I didn't. I was one of those guys that was in the student section. I didn't paint my chest or anything, but I was pretty loud, pretty vocal, and the student section back then was pretty raucous. So yeah,
That's true. But didn't play. Just
but I think we were a little bit better senior year for whatever reason.
Yeah, I guess I had the. Well, if you ain't first, you're last mentality back in the day before before Ricky Bobby.
Yeah, pre-Will Ferrell. Yeah.
And so, and I just remember having a miserable senior year of baseball. I'd stopped working out as hard. And it was the same with school. Like I realized I wasn't this athlete. Mm-hmm. And then they rank you, in school, and I'm like in the middle, and I'm like, if I'm not great, I don't know how to be average. Like I just don't want to do it.
If you're going to do something, you want to be
right. I was just hurt. So I remember my senior year, never got a detention until my birthday. So it's February 3rd, 2006. I get called in to Tammy Hatfield's. She gives me 6 days. She was like, "You've missed 22 days of unexcused school," because I had just stopped going. And there was ways back in the day that they've covered them holes that you could just skip school.
Yeah, right. It was a little easier then. Yeah,
yeah, and especially if you had friends, office aides and stuff.
Yeah,
right.
But
not the case now, students. So if you're listening now and you're a student now, don't try it. It's
well, the big one was the home phone.
Yes.
They called the home phone.
Yep.
You just go home, delete the message, and then go fishing or go back to bed or whatever.
You didn't really have a cell phone. Your parents didn't have a cell phone unless you were doing pretty well, yeah.
But, yeah, so at the end of the day, though, I graduated. Week after graduation, I get a call from Don Roten, baseball coach at Milo. Mm-hmm. He's like, "Hey, I want you to come play." And I'm like, wow. Look over there, And talk about feeling like you don't belong. First practice. If you go to a high school batting practice, you might see a home run or two. And I kid you not, there's like 30 home runs. I can't even get the ball out of the infield that first practice. I don't last a week with the team because I was just like, I don't belong. I'm not the guy. I don't want anything to do with this. Mm-hmm. So I quit.
But you're still enrolled in Motlow.
I'm still enrolled. But again, I had stopped really caring about school, so I didn't have study habits at all.
Yeah.
I ended up dropping 3 out of my 4 classes, and I passed a math class, I think. So, and
is math one of your
better subjects? How'd you feel? I mean, it's pretty kind of a drift, huh? I mean, what'd that feel like?
Yeah, well, it was, it just lost. Like,
I
didn't know. I was just lazy, maybe.
Yeah.
Lazy and lost.
And being unsure of things probably doesn't help that laziness.
So my fix, I got a fix for it, right?
Okay.
It's like, I'm going to join the Air Force.
Yeah.
And so it was at Northgate Mall at the time. They had the
recruiting office,
yeah. So I walk into the Air Force place and sign up, and they give me a test and, sign your life away. And 6 months later, they're like, "Hey, you're going to ship out in 6 months." Okay. So, So at the time I was working, I'd gotten a job as a salad bar guy at Ruby Tuesdays. Mm-hmm. And it's 10 o'clock at night, Sunday, and I'm sweeping the floors. And I look over, and there's my girlfriend at the time. And I'm like, "What are you doing here?" And she goes, "I'm pregnant." Mm. And so as a guy, I think for every guy,
right,
when you hear those words, you're either terrified or super happy.
Right.
And as a 19-year-old, absolutely terrified.
Yeah.
Right.
And this is a girl that
it's a kid having a kid, right?
Is it?
Yeah.
A lazy, lost kid.
Yeah.
Having a kid.
Right.
And this is a girl that, we're hanging out because all my friends are in college, all her friends are in college, but it's known like I go to the Air Force. We're done. We're just
Right.
Yeah.
And so she tells me on a Sunday. We get married that Friday. That's
Whoa. Yeah.
So I don't know if you ever knew that.
I don't know if I knew that one.
No. So in that, I ended up going that summer of 07 to San Antonio to basic training.
Okay.
At the time, it was 6.5 weeks long. So I make it to week 4.
Okay.
And it's called Warrior Week. And it's basically you go dress up in camouflage. They say playing Army.
Yeah.
And you get to shoot guns that week. And that's like you only get to shoot it one day. I don't know if they changed it, but
Right.
But so before you go to your tent, they hand you like 6 MREs.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never even heard of MREs. So
Delicious meals. Yeah. Sure. But by the way, if you're not familiar, an MRE is literally this little vacuum sealed looking bag or container of some sort with most of the time fairly dried foods that if you just add some water and heat something up, it'll kind of make it seem like food, but
literally stands for meal ready to eat.
Yes, and that should be a flag right
Yep.
there. When you see it with the
Yeah. But well, my first one, and you might like this, jambalaya.
it scares me. It scares me.
That could go really wrong.
Now, the only good thing I know that I think I know about MREs is I used to have one of the little can openers that they would use. I don't know if they had it then, but it was the little, it folded out, you put it on your keychain. I never opened anything with it.
No.
Maybe, I don't know. But
I don't remember much about them.
jambalaya MRE sounds scary to me.
I think.
Yeah, and you had to like shake it and like it would like build heat or something.
Yeah, around it. They would cook it.
It was almost like a little hot hands that was inside of it that like warmed it up. It's gross.
So you've ever eaten jambalaya again after the jambalaya MRE?
No. Well, funny thing is, so jambalaya, it had shrimp in it. And I never ate shrimp growing up because it made my tongue itch. I was like, man, this yeah. So, and basic training, you get 3 minutes to eat your meal. So, and MREs are like 2,000 calories. So, I just down this jambalaya, and so it's a bunch of shrimp I've eaten, and it's 100 degrees in South Texas in summer.
Ooh.
And so we're marching around doing something. People are looking at me. They're like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a little itchy. I'm fine. I'm good." I had my tongue itch, the normal shrimp. I was like, "You probably shouldn't eat that." And then one of our leaders in our group pulls me aside. He's like, "We're gonna go see somebody."
I'm sure you were white as a ghost. Yeah.
And I was like, "He's like, you got to see your face kind of is swollen." And so we go up and we go up to they call them TIs, training instructors. And I remember tapped him on the shoulder and he turns around and goes, "What?" And then his face scared me because when he saw mine, he kind of dropped back. I was like, "Oh my goodness!" Like I was like, "All right." So they call an ambulance. Apparently, I looked like Hitch at the time. I'm swollen.
Like Will Smith and Hitch. Yeah.
Yes. Like they think I'm like.
We need the EpiPen now.
Yeah, they give me an IV and I go sit in a hospital bed for a couple hours and I'm good though. I'm fine.
Right.
Okay.
And so go back to my flight, go to bed, wake up that morning. They call me out. Like, "Hey, you got to come with us. You got to go see somebody in some office." And get pulled in there and like pull out my application and there's food allergies. There's nothing next to it. They're like, "You didn't write down you had a food allergy." I was like, "Well, I didn't know." And they're like, "Well, I mean, you could have died from your little food allergy you just had." And so they basically pull me out of training and I have to go sit in this medical flight for 4 weeks before they go, "Well, they told me if you want to be in the Air Force, you're going to have to go out, get a waiver for your food allergy, and then come in." So I had to go sit in a medical flight to be processed out for 4 weeks.
Wow.
So that was jail to me. Like you woke up, you went and stood in line for 30 minutes to get breakfast, come back, and you had to sit in a room. It was crazy. But I eventually get processed out, and I come home, and my plan to fix everything is gone. I'm back at square one.
Yeah.
So Philip Moody gives me a call, and he's like, "Hey,
And Philip Moody is a long time minister in our town who I cannot say enough good stuff. He may be listening to this at some point, but I would say it to his face or not. He's impacted so many people in this town.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I think it's cool that you ran into him on that.
Yeah, and so
did you have him as a youth pastor growing up, or did you you knew him in high school, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I was more of the Methodist guy.
Okay.
But all my friends seemed to go to King's Cross.
Yeah.
So I saw him a ton, and he was always around the sports.
I was the same
teams.
way. Yeah, I was the same way.
Where was I at?
Well, you
Came back here
they
and
processed you out of the Air
Yeah.
Force, starting
I got
over
you.
again. You're right.
So I then go and start working some factory jobs. He got me a job over by the airport, and that was miserable. You talk about making $5.75 an hour. I think like minimum wage $7 something now, isn't it?
yeah.
And mentally taxing. Like, you think studying's hard? Like doing the same thing 8 hours
Yeah.
a day.
Mind-numbing labor, yeah.
Yeah, it's just that is hard to do, especially at 19. My daughter was born there in October. Me and the mom split pretty much after that. And I remember the lowest point, New Year's Day, would have been 2008, and I'm sitting in a chair with a 2-month-old as a 19-year-old watching the ball drop off by myself. And I'm just bawling. I'm like, I was given the world, and I just threw it away because I was, quote, lost. It's not really lost. I just didn't want to listen to anybody. I just didn't want to work. I didn't want to not be the superstar, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm doing the mic.
You're good. You're good.
And so a little bit after that, I come crawling back home, my tail between my legs to mom and dad, and they let me move back in, and I started going to shovel tech, and it was because I knew I had to do something. I didn't want to do the factory stuff.
Yeah.
And that was the one I was like, what can I make the most money on? I didn't have any passions at this time because I was,
Right.
ex-athlete that's not good enough to play sports. Didn't really try hard in school. I got to try something. So I was like, well, I'll do this computer thing. And
this is a technical college, a technical school just down the road from us in Shelbyville.
right, it's got a cool name now.
Yeah, I don't even know what that.
Tennessee College of Applied Technology.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
TCAT.
So, yeah. So they.
But most people,
Call it Shelbyville Tech. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you grew up around here, that's definitely what it's called. But I was there for about 18 months. I mean, walked in, didn't know anything about computers. Walked out with probably 5 different certifications, and I got a job in Nashville at a law firm called Bradley & Bolt Cummings.
Did they connect through Shelbyville Tech, or how that?
No, I just started applying. Yeah, and I got the interview. I was told later I was second in the interview. They interviewed 3 people. First guy was a girl actually had a criminal history, so I got bumped up the list. But that was big too, because that's 2008 and 2009, and we're in a recession.
Yeah.
And so
that's.
and so
That was a computer gig at the law firm.
it was just your basic IT technician.
Right.
So I'm driving from Tullahoma because my daughter's here. I don't want to fully commit.
Yep.
So I'm driving every day from Tullahoma to Nashville, back. But
Fun.
yeah, had a different mindset though, because it was like, I'm not messing this opportunity up.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And did that for 2 years, and that same company. This law firm has a bunch of different offices, and it's not like your law firms here. Like, this law firm was 90 attorneys strong.
Right.
Wow, yeah.
Like, it's big time law
Yeah.
firm. They had a office in Huntsville, which it was an IT tech position, but it was just me there, so it was kind of a little more responsibility. So I drove from Tullahoma to Huntsville for 2.5 years before I interviewed here. And so that I interviewed here, I obviously got the job, I've been here 7 years.
Wow.
Almost 8. So that is that's how I did mine.
No, and I really appreciate your story telling that because, look, when we're all kids, we're trying to figure things out, trying to figure out who it is. And when we put all our eggs in that athletic basket, for instance, there's a lot of identity that's wrapped up in that. And it's also ripped from you when you can't continue on with that.
Right.
And it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to figure out who you are, what you want to do, and that kind of thing. And I don't know if we do a good job of that sometimes, frankly, when we're working with kids. We just let them discover more diversity of who they are and what they can do and all that, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say, growing up in Tullahoma, I kind of felt like I was in a bubble. Or I think you are in a bubble.
Yeah, a little bit.
And then when you graduate, you are no longer in that bubble.
Right.
And if you're not ready, it will.
I think a lot of hometowns are like that.
You're gonna hurt.
Yeah. If you kind of grow up in a semi-rural, semi-metropolis type city.
How many country songs have been written about that?
Exactly.
Exactly. I mean, there's a reason for it, though, because it's a common story.
Yeah. And the biggest city we had seen growing up was, maybe Nashville, unless you're someone that traveled a bunch. But for the most of us, you don't see a whole lot. And you see New York and L.A. and London and Paris, and you see all these big cities on TV. But, you get out in the real world after college, after high school, it can be eye-opening.
I think it was important, and again, just like all the rest of our podcast, you named Philip Moody, you named someone that had influenced you there at that critical time. It takes some vulnerability on your part to open yourself up to help there, though, right? I mean, I've been sent home from the Air Force. I'm back in this town. You had to allow yourself to be influenced by somebody too, right? I mean,
yeah. I'm definitely blessed to know Philip Moody at that particular time.
Yeah.
Granted, I was begging for help at that time also.
Yeah.
That was
Philip's that guy, though. I mean, he's
a huge loss.
I think
Kentucky's game.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
And Kentucky needed the help.
Today has since moved away from our area. If you're listening, he's since moved back to Kentucky, where I think he's from.
I had a phone conversation with him today. So told him we were going to be talking. I think it's important too for us adults to be able to look around and step into those kind of situations as well. I think it's important for students to know that there are people that want to help them do those things, though. I think a lot of times we get sucked up into our own little kind of tunnel vision about what's going on, and we don't see some of the help that's right around us as well. I think that's a big deal. And there's folks want you to succeed for the most part. I mean, I think they do. So
I think and I don't know why I didn't listen, because I heard it. I mean, you're told as a high school student what you should be doing, or what's best. Somebody's going to tell you at some point, and I did not realize between age 16 and 19 how big of an impact for the rest of my life I was doing to myself.
Now, I will say you've kind of landed on your feet.
Yeah.
It's
I would kind of say that
perseverance, is paying off.
I did a story at King's Cross one time about how I was blessed to actually get kicked out of the Air Force, and that let me meet my wife now, and we've got.
Did y'all meet in Huntsville?
No, she was here.
She was here already.
Yeah, and
while you were in Huntsville, working in Huntsville, maybe I misread that part of it, but anyway, y'all met here.
You moved back to Tullahoma from the Huntsville gig, right? When you met her, yep.
Yes. And,
okay.
We got a kid, and we got another one coming, and so
that's right.
It's
early congratulations, by the way.
Well, thank you.
You did marry above your head.
Yeah, she's a good one.
But yeah, but it's a good point to say there are people that are willing to help you, especially between those ages of 16, 19. But you've got to listen.
Yeah,
and you have to have priorities, and it's not extracurriculars most of the time.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe if you're a Brian Morris.
Yeah, if you're that 1%, maybe. Yeah,
I think he would even say there's some folks that helped him go through that. I think It's interesting, and I do think this is an important thing. I've raised 2 boys in this town. I was a boy at some point. I'm an old fart now, but there was a point of it. There's a narrative that guys have that keeps them from being vulnerable and getting help sometimes. We figure out we've got to be a man, figure it all out. And I've seen that story repeated in this town and other towns over and over and over and over again. And so I think your story is unique because it's your story, and it's also, friends and other folks that have been through it sometimes. And, when it sounds like, you went to Shelbyville Tech, you were there for 18 months. Could you feel your confidence building as you went through and learned this computer thing that you didn't know you would be interested in? Now it
was definitely a path, because I hadn't been on one for
Right.
a while. Hey, I'm going to get on this. I'm going to work and towards.
Right.
You were just kind of doing odds and end jobs. You weren't
Right.
doing a career type thing, right?
Yeah, right. And so it's like I have a path to succeed now, and so that changes everything.
Yeah.
You've talked a little bit about it. What would you tell your younger self now?
My younger self.
Don't skip school. No,
Yeah, don't skip school. Yeah, no.
stay away from shrimp.
That's,
No, stay away from MREs if you
Yeah,
possibly do.
I would give them as priorities what they need to be, and it's not partying and hanging out with friends. It's not sports. It's family, it's school, church.
Yeah.
I would also tell them. A lot of people don't like this, but I would also tell them the world as a whole doesn't care about your problems. In a way, like there's people that do. You've got teachers that do. You've got family members, but as a world, like I get out there, they didn't care at 19.
World doesn't stop if you're hurting.
Yeah, they didn't care that I was okay at math, but you can go do a factory job because you have a high school diploma.
Yeah.
Or that. Oh, you were a good Babe Ruth baseball player? Cool. Well, you can go,
You can go to the factory.
Go sweep the floors over here. Yeah.
I'll give you a great example now. Like, I am a horrendous speller. I don't know why. My brain just doesn't work.
A lot of red squiggly lines under your words, right?
It's better to say, I say I'm a creative speller. That's what I
That's
say.
it. Phonetically. Spelling it like I hear it.
Yeah. But I can't just, my boss says, hey, you need to email somebody. But I don't really want to. It's going to take me an extra 5 minutes than it would for you, because I've got to Google a word.
Right.
Google's amazing, by the way.
Yeah.
If you have spelling problems,
Just
just typing it in there.
Grammarly.
Did you get a lot of the did you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Well, yes, I
yes,
did.
it did. Thank you.
So, and, everybody's got some problem. And I didn't really even have.
I'm the same way with math. Like I can spell decent, but sometimes I get to what would be considered pretty basic math, and I'm like, oh boy, what are all these numbers doing here? Like I just start panicking. But I was always terrible at math. But yeah, I'm the same way, but with math instead of spelling.
Right. Yeah. So it's that everyone's going to have some issue.
Right.
Yeah.
It's okay to be average at something. I think what the world cares about is that you wake up, you do the right thing, and then you're a good person.
Wow. Yeah.
I do.
All the other stuff.
That's what all of our younger selves need to hear. That's a really good point.
I think a lot of times, and I think we do it to ourselves, I believe we tend to label other people and then we respond to the label, right? And I think we label ourselves sometimes and then respond to the label. Right. And I see that narrative with kids like we just talked about in towns. We've got this certain thing that we're supposed to live up to rather than being the human being you were created to be, being the human being we were all created to be, and seeing that in the other folks. And so I think it's interesting as you discovered that about yourself, you're able to say the things you just said because, growing up, getting up, doing my job best I can, being a good person, all those things that you were worried about in high school, all of a sudden, man, I got a wife and kids, and it changes your whole priority system, right?
And speaking of that, you have your first child there is now getting up to this high school, close to this high school age, right? We're not far from it, right? So
8th grade.
Wow.
Yeah. So now you're passing on some of these words of wisdom of don't get too pigeonholed into a thing like athleticism or thing like that, and wrap your whole identity in that, right?
Right. Well, I'm just trying to get her motivated on anything.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother like podcast story. Yeah.
Yeah.
But for sure. And unfortunately, she kind of has a story, you know. Her mom now lives in Kansas City, and so that's kind of a tough thing. And I try to say, you know, the world's not going to care about, you don't get a break on a math test because, you know, your
Right.
mom's gone, or, you know.
Yeah.
So it's hard for kids that age, because I didn't really have it bad. I had it good, you know. And I see some of these kids these days, especially when we're in the school system, it's just like, if you could just get past that and just wake up, do the right thing, you know, you're just going to make it so much easier for yourself when you grow up.
Agreed. Yeah.
Well, I just think it's so important for students, for anybody, to be confident in the human they've been created to be. I mean, we've got different skills and different abilities. We could all go through our list. I flunked out of college. They sent me a letter, said don't come back. I've been through those kind of things, right? I mean, those are the things that we all experience. And it's interesting watching a kid stress, for instance, over a math test that they failed. And I can't tell you how many math tests I failed.
Yeah, same.
They don't keep, that does not define me though, right? That does not define you or anybody, any of us. We move on and to be the best humans we can be. I think that's the thing that's important.
Fully agreed. Said beautifully, Mike. Perfect.
Anything we haven't asked you about that you want to talk about?
No, I think that covers it up.
Yeah.
I am impressed with the studios that y'all have created here in a short time.
We appreciate it.
It's been fun. It's been some great stories. Number 10 today, but that I appreciate your vulnerability in telling that story, because I think it's very, very, very relevant for folks here who listen to this. And I appreciate that.
Thank you for that very much. All right, everybody. This has been our episode 10 of Two Mics and a Guest. We'll see you next time.